Transferring property is a legal process of changing the ownership of a property from one person to another, from joint names to one name. This is something that often happens after a separation, but it can cause a fair bit of confusion. So tell me, Diane, how is property transferred after settlement?
Look, people often approach us and tell us that they would like to retain the home or do not know what it will mean for them or how that can be achieved. As part of a property settlement or a property division, however you want to explain it, there can be an agreement. That agreement can say that one person is going to retain the property and the other person is going to transfer their interest to them, and that person may buy them out, so pay some cash to them at the time of that transfer. The reality is that either way, even if there is not a cash payment or if there is to be a cash payment, usually people have a mortgage. So the first thing I say to people is you need to go to your bank or you need to go and see someone in the finance industry to see whether you can and you're able to refinance and take over that property. Because the first thing you'll have to do is, of course, if you're getting the property in your name, is take over the debt as well. The debt can't remain in joint names and the property or go into that person's name. So that's really, it can happen. Yes, it can happen and it does occur. And in most property settlements, someone generally will be retaining the home or the only other option is sale. But in most property settlements, people decide that one person's going to keep the home, which is completely fine. But I always say the first step is approach your bank.
Okay. So is there anything a person should know before they embark upon this process?
So as I said, there's a number of things. Firstly, the person who wants to keep the property or retain the property should go to their bank and confirm that they're able to take over the mortgage, the current loan that remains on the property. Look, the other thing is if it's agreed that in addition to taking over the loan, that person's going to be making a cash payment, well then they also need to speak to the bank about whether they can afford the loan plus the cash payment, because unless they've got some additional funds to pay out that person, they're going to need to have that as well. Now, I'm not a financial advisor by any means or an accountant, but a practical thing I tell people is sit down, work out your budget, work out what the loan is right now, work out what your expenses are generally, because what people also need to realise is there's no longer two incomes, particularly if there were two people
who are working.
Absolutely. There's no longer two incomes coming in. So they will have those things like the rates, the insurance, car registrations, car insurance, in addition to the mortgage. So have a sit down, work out a budget, and then you can go to the bank with a plan if it's decided or agreed that ultimately that person's going to retain the property.
So if property needs to be transferred to a person, is there anything they need to worry about there?
Yes, and I really can't stress enough in relation to that. If parties have reached an agreement and they've decided that they want to divide their property, and part of that agreement is one person keeping the property, then they should formalise that agreement by way of consent orders. Consent orders will not only mean for that person that there's finality in relation to the property matters, but will also mean that the person receiving the property has the benefit of a stamp duty exemption on the transfer of the property. So we all know when we purchase a property, generally speaking, we pay stamp duty. And so what occurs is if parties do not have consent orders or some other recognised binding agreement, the person receiving the property may have to again pay stamp duty on that transfer. If there are orders or a recognised binding agreement, then stamp duty may not be payable for a transfer of property between partners or spouses if the transfer is pursuant to those orders or a recognised agreement. And that's primarily because it's been recognised that they've already paid that stamp duty at the beginning. And there's just been something that's occurred in their relationship, and as a result of that, one person's going to keep the property. So absolutely, first thing is, can I take over the property? Next thing is, I need to get a recognised binding agreement, usually what we say is consent orders, to be able to show that the property should be transferred, and then the person getting the benefit of the property will be exempt
from that
will
extra
likely
tax.
be exempt from stamp duty.
Yeah.
Yes.
So transferring property is not easy, and although it can cause some people to get, pretty stressed, to take some weight off your shoulders throughout this separation, definitely go and see the team from Ruhl Family Law Centre today so they can give you a hand and take a little bit of that stress away.